there'd be a player out in West Texas and only a couple guys would know about him. That isn't the case anymore. They just need to play. You don't need to go to all these tournaments, all these showcases, everything else. You just need to play. We'll find you. Social media will get the information out there. If you're out in wherever you may be, you just got to go play. Show your tools. Somebody's going to get the information out. There are no secrets anymore. If there are, they're hard to find. Those guys out there who aren't well known, very few and far between. We walk in the ball, oh my goodness, who the heck was that? In the draft, very rarely is there a situation where kids draft and you go, well, who the heck was that? I never heard of that guy. It doesn't happen like it used to. So kids just need to play. Obviously, if you're east and west Texas and you can get in the Metroplex and play, that's ideal. But ultimately, we're going to find out. We're going to find who you are. Colleges are going to find you. We're going to show up at tournaments. The information will get out. So I just encourage guys to play. Play in your own area. You don't need to travel all over the place. Now, if you have a team that does, that's great. That's a great opportunity for you to get against a better competition. But if you have tools, we're going to find you, and we will ultimately see you play.
Max, that's a great segue into technology, how it's changed the way players can be seen, social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those types of tools. It's also changed over the years, especially how players are measured, the Moneyball era, analytics. What are your thoughts on how the game has changed in this respect?
It's all part of it. When it first started to come about, you kind of roll your eyes. But now there's value in there's value in it, and it's great information. We utilize that information. Technology's out there. For example, 2 days ago, I was given the name. I cover El Paso, as well as going over to the Mississippi and North Louisiana. But somebody called me up and told me about a pitcher in El Paso. Again, he has never been into the Metroplex. But I was able to find out about him. Apparently he's a guy 89 to 92. I need to see that guy, but again, it's just information. I looked up video on the kid. It's a good-looking kid. It's a good-looking arm. Technology has changed the game. It's certainly changed the way we operate. It's changed the way, we do certain things. You have to utilize technology. We have to utilize it. Kids need to utilize technology that's out there. Whatever you can get your hands on, whatever you value, whatever you think there is value for your player, then proceed with it and do it. My advice on the flip side is be careful. There's a lot of things out there, and at the end of the day, Tom and I were sharing some information the other day. It's still about working on your skills, working on your tools. There's a lot of things out there to help you, apparently get better, but no, it's still about going and doing your work and, swinging the bat and all those things that you need to do to become a better baseball player. But yeah, there is value in technology. Certainly it can help the player. It can help us. Utilize it, but don't get carried away with it.
What are your thoughts, Tom?
Well, I think it's important because I think the better job we can do of evaluating players or potential players, the more precise we're going to be at making good decisions and understanding what a spin rate means and what type of breaking ball a guy actually has. If you watch the May kid that Max mentioned earlier, you'd have to be blind not to see the spin rate that the kid had with a breaking ball. But it gives you a way of measuring that spin rate so you can compare it to other players around the world. And the same thing happens with exit velocity and all these things. The technology piece is a very sellable item. We need to keep that in mind because kids are very astute to it. They want to know, oh my gosh, I hit this spin rate. I did this. So keeping that in volume and determining what aspects we're going to use and how you're going to use it to develop players is the important aspect to me.
Guys, there's all kinds of data available on the spreadsheet, but one of the X factors is how do you measure a kid's ability to compete? Do you want them out there on the mound in the ninth inning when you got to get an out? Tom, as a head coach, you knew the guys you could go to when you coached your guys in high school. You were around them all the time. As scouts, how do you measure that? And do you have the ability to do that in today's society?
Well, I think you have to be there. You have to get out and look at it. You have to spend enough time to where you catch a kid. Max mentioned a minute ago, you travel halfway across, all the way across Texas and go, and a kid disappoints you on an evening, or the same thing can happen where they intentionally walk him 5 times. So, those are parts of the game, but how a kid responds to certain situations and how he, his demeanor, how he plays the game is extremely important. And I think it's something that we continue to tell kids, you know what, somebody's watching you. It might be a younger player that looks up to you. It might be all the way up to a professional scout or, a college coach that's very interested in you. Somebody's watching you all the time. So players understanding how hard they need to exert themselves and play the game with emotion, and conviction. I think the dedication that kids have, and when you find out a kid sleeps till 11 o'clock every day and then goes to the ballpark and plays that night, and he's home at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock and then sleeps and starts the whole routine over again or stays up late. Well, we're looking for kids that want to work because it's a job. I mean, it is. And it's the same thing in college, too. It's a job.
Yeah, it's a grind out there. I talked to some kids that like to go the JUCO route, and you both know JUCO, they have the ability to practice a lot more. They work a lot harder, and it's an adjustment from the high school level. And that's a real test on a young man, a 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid, true test of their integrity. What are your thoughts on this, Max?
You know what? It's all about effort. It's all, when you talk about competing, it's competing from the first pitch to the last pitch. All those things. I mean, yeah, it's hard. I mean, you're playing 6 games on a weekend. I get it. On that Sunday when you're in games 5 and 6, it becomes a little bit of a struggle. The guys are tired, and we take that into account, obviously. But when if you're in your 6th game of the weekend and it's 95 degrees or 100, but when it's time for you to step up and it's time for you to get a big hit, the guys who compete will at least give you the effort and energy level and try hard. There are guys who go through the motions, and those are the guys that we have questions about. It's a big situation, and they almost look like they don't want to be there. It kind of raises a red flag. Those guys who just kind of pitch and, they don't care. All those things. So, yeah, competing is so important. And you can just watch a kid. You'll see a kid during the summer, and you get a feel for whether they're ready to play, whether they're ready to compete. Do they rise to the occasion? It is a grind. It's a long season for these high school kids. We understand that as scouts, but when the time is theirs, they take advantage of it and they succeed, or at least they have quality. They'll have a quality at bat. They'll have a quality inning on the mound, and they'll show us those things that we're looking for ultimately. If you're out there playing, you're competing, that's what we'll see.
As we sit and record this session, it's November 30th, 2018, prime off season, definitely for the high school athlete, any college player, professional player. What are some of the things that you both see in the off season that really contributes to success during the season this time of year?
I was at DBAT Allen day before yesterday, 8:30 at night. The place starts to clear out. Not very many people there. 2 kids come in from Plano High, and a kid came in from Allen High. And they're in there working, and they're going to work until they close the place down. That's huge, Finding that type of commitment, finding people, seeing what they're doing in weight rooms, seeing how, what their work ethics are like and what their dedication's like. That says a lot. So those are big things that, Max talks about he's seen somebody in El Paso or heard about somebody in El Paso. We never stop. We don't stop. We continue working. We continue looking. We continue, everybody's at this game 365 days a year. You might have a few days where you're not around it, but we do try to spend as much time as we can, and our lines are always open to find more players and find out more information.
What are your thoughts, Max?
I think what Tom just said is crucial. Those guys going to work. And let me add to that, though. The last week or so, I've been out seeing kids hit, seeing some of the kids that I might have an interest in, come springtime. Some of these guys we've seen across, during the summer play, and some of the better names. And you go watch these kids, and it's just hitters right now. I'm just seeing guys take BP. But you go in and watch them, and they're in there working, and sometimes you get in swing mode. So I guess my point would be to anybody who's listening to this, get your work in, but make sure it's quality work. I'm seeing guys who are names that we need to see next year, and at times are going through the motions. So make sure that if you're going to go in and work, make sure it's good work. Make sure it's quality work. Make sure there's a purpose to what you're doing, not going in, hey, I was hitting from 8:30 to 9:30. It was awesome. Well, what'd you get done? Nothing. And I think that's the key point, is that you can go into work, but work smart. Make sure you have a plan when you show up to work, to get your work in, and get out. Obviously it is a long season. There's a lot of time now between now and January. Have to, get good habits, get good work ethic, and get out of there and go enjoy yourself. I mean, obviously it's a grind. Come springtime, it's a grind. And all these players need to understand, we want guys to work. I don't encourage anybody not to work, but make sure your work is smart.
So lesson there, practice with a purpose. That's good stuff, Max. Hey, we like to have a little fun on the show, so we're going to switch gears a little bit. In your all's almost 60 years collectively of being on the road, I know each one of you have at least one or two, or probably a lot more good stories from your time out there on the warpath that you can share. Remember, this is a family-friendly show. Who wants to go first?
Max, go first.
Oh, my goodness sakes. It's a family-friendly show. Golly, let me think. Go ahead, Tom. You got to go first because I'm drawing a blank right now.
I remember a Crosschecker just a few years ago with a young man here out of the Plano area in a league game, and they had probably 7 or 8 Crosscheckers and 2 or 3 scouting supervisors there with probably 25 scouts total. And they travel from all over the country. Some of them might have not been in the United States and travel to here, spend all that money. But they go over, and the young man that they're trying to see hit is intentionally walked 5 times.
Oh, wow.
2 scouting directors had crawled up the screen. I'm talking like off the ground, up the screen 2 or 3 feet, screaming at the coach that's intentionally walking them. So
Tom's giving us a good visual here that y'all can't see.
oh, it's hilarious. So it happens, and scouts get a little crazy too. So
yeah, that stuff happens, and unfortunately, it happens more often than folks think when we're out there. But yeah, I can remember hearing about that. I know exactly who the player is too. That's kind of funny that you bring that up.
How about the weather factor, Max? You got any good stories about weather?
Yeah, you know what? I can tell you this. I was at I used to cover Georgia. I was watching Barrett Browning, and they had another young man on that same staff. I think it was down in South Georgia. And the first game went off, and Barrett Browning's left-hand pitcher up going to Florida State, and I think he was a second, third-round draft pick. But he pitched the first game, and it was cold. It was really cold, and we were all bundled up, and he finished up playing 3 innings. He pitched his 3 innings. Well, I went to the car, listened to the finish of the game on the radio. Next game starts. It starts at 7 o'clock. It's freezing cold. It's the coldest I've ever been. It was close to Savannah, so we had the little moisture in the air. It was freezing cold. So we watched that game, and I'll never forget, it was before cell phones. And the game ends, and I'm in the car, and now you got to check your voicemail. You got to check your messages. So I know I have to go find a payphone. I find a payphone. I haven't warmed up yet. I haven't warmed up. It's still freezing cold. My body's chilled to the bone. And I go out, and I stop, and I got to get a payphone. And the wind's howling, and I'm trying to push the numbers on the payphone. And kids who don't know, used to be phones on the corners at gas stations, etc. And I'm trying to push these buttons. It took me 5 times to get the numbers pushed. I was so cold.
They were frozen.
I was frozen. The wind was blowing, and I was miserable. and I'll never forget that as long as I live. That was the coldest I've ever been at the ballpark.